Hey guys, Tommy B here. I happen to be doing a 350QX conversion to a RakonHeli frame for a customer of mine, and talking to him on some issues that he ran into when he was doing his, and some things that were giving him a hard time. Made me think I should maybe do a little video and give y'all guys some helpful hints and tips on some specific issues that you guys are running into. First thing, whenever you're taking the 350QX, the original body, and taking the electronics and the guts out of the body, of course you want to keep track of orientation as to where the ESCs are to motor. The motor orientation doesn't matter. The ESC is the brain, and of course if you mismatch them and do not allot them to the right motor as they were originally, you will have to do motor assignment on the quad after you get it back together before you ever get it to work. Keep that in mind. Also, the orientation of the compass on the leg, the orientation as how the compass mounts, you need to duplicate that on the RakonHeli frame, or you will have issues there also. Whenever you're taking it apart, and originally when you got the thing apart, you have it laid out. At least I do. I have the wiring harness laid out, of course, with the flight controller motherboard sitting there in the middle. And you're going to have to wrap these ESCs with heat shrink. And of course, in order to get the heat shrink properly around the ESC, you're going to have to disconnect it. Now, the lesser you unplug on a 350QX during this process, the better off you will be. One being the little connectors and all on these ESCs are very delicate. They will break off. Doesn't take a whole lot at all to knock those off, and if you break those off and you're not a master solderer, you got an issue and you're going to be buying a new ESC. Hence what happened to this one right here. Now that happens to be just a little light plug, but hence the guy that owns this broke that off in the process. One of the things you guys are running into is unplugging these bullet connectors. They can be a pain in the posterior to get loose. They're pretty tight, but here's a simple trick to get them to come apart real easy. You can usually do this with your fingers. Sometimes you might have to put a pair of needle nose pliers on it to be able to twist it, but if you just turn these a quarter turn, they'll come right apart. Just a little turning action to it as you take them apart, and they'll come right apart. For some reason or other, if you try to pull them straight apart, like that one right there, it's a bitch. A little twist action, comes right apart. Of course, you're going to have to take the motor loose from the motor side of the ESC in order to be able to put the heat shrink wrap around the ESC. This is my technique and how I do it. Take, of course, heat shrink. This is 3/4 wide, and it's just barely wide enough to properly cover an ESC correctly. And here's you a little trick. Take your pair of needle nose pliers, you stick in there like so, and you open it up a little bit. Now, here's one that I've got ready to go. I have took the pliers and opened the heat shrink. I cut me a little scallop out on one side, and I've cut that to the length of the ESC, and there's a reason for this scallop, which I'm getting ready to show you. With motor unplugged, I route my wires neatly across there like so. Then taking with scallop side going toward those plugs right there. Slide heat shrink on, making sure not to be kind of gentle with it. Now, here's the reason that I cut that scallop out of there. When you go to heat shrink, it's going to compress, and it's going to put force down on those plugs, and the very heat shrinking could even knock those plugs off that ESC. So hence I cut a little slot around there so it's not putting the pressure down on those connectors, and I'm able to get back to those at any given time in the future and just unplug the light bulb or unplug the wire that talks to the motherboard. No problems at all. I don't have to cut my heat shrink back off there. I use a heat gun. I know a lot of you guys don't have a nice heat gun laying around. A nice hair dryer on a high setting, a hair dryer you'd probably have to use. I know a lot of you guys use a big lighter, which that's okay, that'll work, but be cautious. You don't want to burn the wires or burn the little plugs or anything of that sort. Now let's shrink the wrap down. And when you do it with a heat gun or a hair dryer, you can evenly put heat all the way around it, and you don't risk the chance of melting something with fire from a cigarette lighter. Whenever you've got all your ESCs shrink wrapped and you're getting ready to assemble this and put it back together, this right here is a little helpful hint that I'm sure you guys are running into when you go to plug your motor back up once you start assembling this thing. There's a little set screw, there's a little screw on the bottom side of this right here that's catching into that slot right there on the arm. Take that screw out, or at least lower it enough to where it's out of that collar, to where when you go to put this together, you slide this into the tube, and then you're able to take and slide that tube back in there like that. That's going to throw your connectors out the end of the tube, which is going to give you more room to work with there and be able to plug it back up easily. Hence, plug motor back up, then you're able to slide tube back out and then put set screw back in. Another thing that happened to be the guy didn't do prior to putting the motherboard on is on the underside of this motherboard, the connections are open. I recommend to paint a coat of liquid electric tape over those connections on the bottom of that board. Reason being, you've got holes, etc. on a RakonHeli frame. If you set this down or you land it in wet grass with dew or rain and water hits that board, it's going to fry it, and then you're going to be paying 260 some bucks for a new board. I think that covered it. Let's see, the little bullet connectors are giving y'all issues, and how you got the heat shrink around there, showed you that. Orientation on the compass, orientation on the ESCs. Just remember, guys, the lesser you unplug, when it originally comes out of the 350QX body, the better you are. like I said, you know, you got these delicate plastic plugs on these ESCs and on the motherboard for that matter, and they're not going to take a lot of handling, unplugging and plugging back up on them. Like I'm telling you, the lesser you take apart, the better off you will be. And if I remember correctly, and all the ones I've done, particularly on a V1 and a V2 version, you only got to unplug the compass at the sensor on the bottom of the leg. Then that allows you to route the wire back up leg and through the body of the original 350QX body. And of course, you're going to have to unplug the motors in order to be able to put the heat shrink around the ESC and cover it properly, because you can't have any electrical connections touching the carbon fiber. It conducts electricity and it will fry it. Hopefully these little hints will help you guys out. I know some of you people have thrown me some messages and stuff to my YouTube videos. Sorry, I really don't answer back messages that I get via that route. I'm in several groups on Facebook. One, of course, USA Blade 350QX Owners Group, RakonHeli Group, Homebrew Quads, MQC Mini Quad Club, and of course the World Blade Group. I'm in those also. You can talk to me on there or message me by Facebook, and I'll try to give you all some guidance or help you best I can. Hope this helps you out, guys.